Morning. Hello. Happy December 21st, everyone. Normally I start up in the chairs, but I need to come down and look out in the distance here and say a very happy solstice morning to everyone. Let me just switch this around. Okay. Hi from Ireland. Okay, Robert. There I am looking east, of course. Many of you will recognize spectacular Mount Rundle. Good morning, Martine. Hi there, Lucy. Good morning. So we didn't have as much cloud this morning, so it's not quite as much glow. Hi, Diane. Oh, what a gorgeous morning. So you hear me panting. I left the house just a little late. I rode my bike up the road in the dark, and then I hiked up here, getting a good sweat on. Thank you, Anne. Good morning, Anne. Thank you very much. Have a look out here. Oh, it is spectacular, isn't it? So hi, Justine. Hi, Hannah. Good morning. Hi, Liz. Lovely to see you. Oh, sunset in Scotland. No kidding. Big hugs to you. I was thinking of all my Scottish friends this morning. Of course, we are just 52 degrees north here. And so therefore, our day is actually not too short. It is 8:30 in the morning. Here, I'll give you a mountain selfie back there. But oops, yeah, it's not going to focus on it quite the same way. But yeah, it's just 8:30 in the morning, 8:31. Official sunrise is is 8:44, and then sunset is somewhere around 4 in the afternoon. So we're pretty lucky. I was thinking my friends up in like Orkney and Shetland or Norway or up in Yukon, of course. Whitehorse is north of Siki. Their days are very short. There's a little town on the far east side of Iceland called Hofning. Iceland's only got one tiny island, Grimsli, that goes above the Arctic Circle. But this one town, because of the mountains, they don't see light or direct sunlight for about 60 days. By the way, there's a sign that says, "Do not throw rocks, climbers below." Right, now you'll see little footprints. Those will be squirrel footprints there. But I do climb on these cliffs in the summertime. There's the Bow Valley, and there's the golf course, established 1926. Became famous, of course, in 1943 when Marilyn Monroe came here. So we are in Banff National Park, needless to say. There's the Fairholme Range. Oh, the light is just wonderful. Through the trees in the distance, a little hard to see, but it's Mount Almer. It's actually the highest peak you see from Banff. Everyone thinks it's Cascade Mountain, but it's not. It's that mountain way out there in the distance. Let me see if I can get it. And that's back in, there it is. That's back in the Ghost Valley, and that's where they had reintroduced the bison back in 2017, and the bison populations are doing well. Now, by the way, lots to talk about today. I want to give you a proper tour. Yeah, I've missed them to see. I've got cleats on my shoes because yesterday we were above freezing even here in Banff. My temperature down my backyard showed it right on freezing. The official temperature was -1 this morning. Hi, Lorraine. Nice to see you here. And so, hi, Cheryl. And so I put the cleats on, and I'm glad I did because some of the, particularly lower down on the mountain, it melted a bit yesterday and then refreezes. This is part of the reality of our changing climate. I mentioned the other day, Vancouver is almost 3 weeks fewer below freezing now. But even here in the Rockies, we probably have 7 days less below freezing than we have historically. And the challenge with that, of course, is that we do get this freeze and thaw. And like we're in later December now. Now the solstice, though, is very important. By the way, look at the trees. They're always going to go up. But all the moss up here, you'll never find a fern here. Well, with a couple of tiny exceptions, but here in the Canadian Rockies. And we're up on Sleeping Buffalo Mountain, or Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain. It's so nice to share this with everyone. So we're about 10 minutes away before we'll probably catch a bit of light on top of one of the mountains. Whoo-hoo. Do you know, I have not been doing enough hiking. So it's good to get my heart going. I actually overdressed. See, bare hands. I put on my gloves this morning on the bike, but the snow was deep enough where I was going up that I actually had to push my bike a bit, so I got warm quickly. But it's so nice to get the heart going. By the way, every now and then up in this part of the mountain, I have had the stream cut out. If it does, I'll just walk back down here. So don't worry about that. But welcome to the shortest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. It was apparently 2 something this morning because the solstice does move around a little bit. You know, there's some really cool, really interesting statistics. For example, that if a leap year falls on a new century line, so next century will happen, the year 2100, you won't actually have a leap year day because they have to reset the math even a little bit more. There's the famous chairs. They all came out in 2017, Canada's 150th. Parks Canada, there we are looking down towards the Massif Range. Are you minus 13 down there? Wow, Robert. There are ravens flying around. Last time I was up here, I got a film of a little fox, which is awfully neat. There we are looking down Mount Bourgeot in the distance. Bourgeot isn't it stunning? Yeah. Oh, there's some other people up here. There they are. Some folks up here enjoying. I was the only one when I parked my bike at the bottom. I just locked it up against the fence. I'm really not afraid of crime anywhere here, except my bike is, of course, it's the most valuable thing I own. So it is windy. I have the tube just over my eyes. Yeah, well, you've had over in the UK, I know there's been huge storms. Hi, Joanne. Nice to see you. But yeah, there's people just catching the light up there. There's the town of Banff down in the distance, established 1883 when the trains arrived here, of course. But let me first and foremost acknowledge, and of all days, I think it's most important to acknowledge on this day that I'm here on Treaty 7 territory. There's Treaty 6 territory out in the distance, Métis Treaty 3, the land of the Blackfoot, the Stoney, the Tsuut'ina First Nations, the Cree further down. Because solstice has been, of course, witnessed or shared or studied by humanity. There's the last half of the wolf moon, by the way, which was just last week. That's the full moon, the coldest full moon of the year. And this is considered midwinter, although it certainly isn't for us. This is still the beginning of winter for us, and then winter goes on till, well, May or June if we're lucky. Those are all the ravens. But I acknowledge that because, of course, the solstice was a big deal all around the world. And so, for example, the Egyptians celebrated this changeover for 12 days. That was adopted later on by Christians, hence the 12 days of Christmas. Some Mediterranean areas, the slavers and the enslaved would actually switch roles for the day, which is very interesting. So at least some acknowledgement of the treatment of humanity. Obviously, this is an extremely important time of year for understanding crops and harvest, depending where you are. And the further north you go, the more extreme it becomes, of course. So this is a junction. I mean, it's one of the early scientific ways for humanity. There's my cup of tea over there. For humanity to actually understand the patterns of life. Everyone always loves this tree. And the tree finds a way to turn itself up eventually. Always have. So solstice is often considered a time of rebirth. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not really a person of faith, but I do understand that we have these moments in our lives, and I do take this as an important time of reflection this time of year. Obviously living in a town like this, which is we literally look like every postcard you see. Sorry. Oh yeah, you're talking about the storms over in the UK. Yeah, we're windy again here, but it is a time to sit in and reflect and think about, how your life's been for the last year, the beauty, love, and then some of the negatives, some of the things you might want to, make a change. In our little town here, and it's so interesting because even though, as I say, I'm not a religious person, we look like every Christmas postcard you see around the world. And it bothers me when I'm in other parts of the world. I was just, of course, in Central America, and I love it down there so much. I mean, it's tropical and beautiful. If there are pictures of Christmas trees like these pines, right? And I'm looking up at white bark pines and limber pines up here, right? And they had images of polar bears and things like that. Well, we don't even have polar bears here. Now, our bears are asleep, although apparently a couple are still walking around. It's been so warm. And so, we are this image. And so going right back to the solstice, as the solstice means here, and then down in the southern hemisphere, of course, huge transitional time. I know it's been extremely hot in South America, but for the Mapuche people and and the Chono people. And as you get south, the Yungwe is the way down in Tierra Fuego. These are the longest days of the year, very significant. There's, by the way, Brewster Peak out in the distance. It's only 2,850 meters, but it's such a distinct peak. See how the Rockies all point from west to east. So, so I do actually want to take you sort of around a different way. But yeah, so the solstice plays such an extremely important role um, in both human psychology and in really management of time. I mean, long before you had a watch or a buzzer that would go off. Now, I will have to say, I'm going to tell you the silliest thing I did today. So, I woke up at about 3 a.m. when my kid came home, and it always takes a little bit of time to get back to sleep. Well, then oh yeah, I hope we get more snow too. We need a lot more snow. Oh, there's some light just starting to touch the mountains in the distance here. I'm just going to walk up to this edge a little bit here and see if I can get you Cascade Mountain. As you say, I always get a little worried on this side because I've had the phone cut out on me up around this side. But, so then I fell back to sleep, and I woke up at 4:55 a.m. and somehow in my head, sunrise was going to be 5:30. So I literally jumped out of bed, and I even got as far as putting on socks. And then I realized, no, I don't actually need to be leaving for another 2 hours. Beautiful Cascade Mountain just up there in the distance. And so then I climb back into bed. But I look forward to these walks like this. Have a look down there. There's our town. 8,400 people just beyond the Warner. Thanks, Diane. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, Danny. Sorry. Hi, Danny. Oh, I'm so happy to see you here. I know, Danny, Danny is a dear friend of mine, everyone. We have been to Cuba and Colombia and Peru and Newfoundland together. And I know she had some good family news this year from a health point of view. So that is a lovely thing to reflect upon. So nice to see you, my friend. There's Sulphur Mountain over there. Now, obviously, when the trains arrived in 1883, they ran out of any funding. And that was the huge debate or the huge question of how to deal with everything. And 3 workers smelled sulfur right down around there. And they famously lowered themselves into a hole, and they found warm water, hot water, and they said they're going to build a hot spring resort. And then in 1885, the government of Canada took it over and said, no, we're going to make this an area for all Canadians, really the first national park. And then they had to pay for the whole thing. And I'm going to get you a better view of the Banff Springs Hotel down from the other side. I do want to show you down here, the buildings that are right in there is the Banff Center. It's celebrating 90 years now. It's sort of our mountain university. And it's a fabulous site. And one of the very spoiled things you have when you live here in Banff is I can go to the same concerts there that you would otherwise have to go to Toronto or New York or London to go to. However, and I have to tread lightly because I totally agree with it, my very good friend Kurt, I had lunch with last week, is in charge of the facilities down there. And he's the one who pulled the plug and closed my gym for a whole month. And of all the months to have your gym closed, this is a bummer. Now, that said, there were so many leaks that the Sally Borden Center needed fixing up. We're at lunch. I'm like, well, you can pay for lunch. I do want to show you a building in the distance. Right down there, it's got a round roof on it. I don't know if I can zoom. There you go. Now, that is one of the meeting areas. But why I like that building so much is it's built in the form of a pit house. Now, for the First Nations who lived here, and we know they lived here for 14,000 years, probably not longer than that because it was filled with ice previous to that, but they would build these about 2 meters into the ground. Now, that's about 8 feet, which is what code is for a basement today in Western Canada. And then they would build a top over it. Well, they'd cut down through the permafrost down to where they had access to that warm water. And the warm water here is totally different. So I have to tell you about that as well. But they would cut through, and they would have pretty much the same temperature year round. That's how they'd survive the long, cold winters up here. And pit houses were used all the way through what is now British Columbia, through the west of Canada. And of course, there was teepee culture here as well, needless to say. So, really remarkable form of long-term survival. And very, very low environmental impact. Look at the sky out here now. The wind is just picking up. Just a tiny bit of light now. Cresting. You see a little bit of inversion down the valley. It's actually gotten about a degree or two colder. Now, the wind chill is affecting us. but it's gotten just a little bit colder out here, which is par for the course, right before sunrise. And the sun is going to crest over, hit that Massif range there. If you follow the Trans-Canada Highway and the train tracks, it is 52, 54 kilometers from where I'm standing down to Lake Louise. It is, Diane, isn't it spectacular? I'm going to celebrate this view with, I think maybe, see, if you ever want tea that lasts too long, get a Yeti. There's my product placement for the day. Because it stays too warm. I put an ice cube in this. Yeah, it's just drinkable now. This is my mate from Argentina, so this is my way of sharing the shortest day with the longest day with the two hemispheres. Hey, thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much, Ms. Goss. um, Sunrise is just happening now. I think it's we're probably, yeah, it should just be cresting over the mountains right now. In fact, what I think I might do, everyone, is I'll switch this around. I'm actually going to wander down so I can show you down the Spray Valley. I am on the verge of putting my gloves on, but I think if I do, I'm just going to get hot. Yeah, the half moon, by the way. So I did do a little YouTube video a couple of years ago out in the evening on the wolf moon, which is, of course, the full moon in December. There's either 12 or 13 full moons every year. Let me just throw the backpack on again. My backpack feels very light when I don't have my bike lock in it. So I have one of those very heavy metal ones. Not like heavy metal as in, Def Leppard, but it is, it feels just so good to be out in this fresh air. And as I was starting up the mountain, which, for me is not a particularly long walk. Hey, MB, good morning to you. Happy solstice down there in Houston. Yeah, and happy holidays to you, Danny. We'll have to plan a phone call. But let's head down because we'll see the light down in the distance, down the Spray Valley and up into the Goat Valley. Morning. So it's good morning. So we have so many young people who come and work here in Banff, of course. And yes, and my my lovely son has finished his last exam day before yesterday for his first semester of university, and then he took a bus down from Edmonton. I picked him up, and we went and saw my mom and her friend. We're gonna pick them up on Monday. Let's get that gentleman by here. Morning. Morning. And we're gonna pick my mom up on Monday and take her to the airport. She's flying out to Vancouver Island. Now, whereas we've had quite a dry start to our winter and really not cold, like this time, last year before, we had minus 42. There's the light just coming up in the, I need to try and get you a view out on Mount Ingalls Maldy if I can, right over Lake Minnewanka. But they've been just getting storms, a bit like you have in the UK as well. Major rainstorms. And yeah, my brother had a tree come down in his backyard. Didn't do any real damage, but I mean, these are the old cedar trees, so it's sad to see them come down. We don't have the cedars here, of course. You have to drive west for about 3.5 hours before you get to stand at them. Sorry, I won't see any of the chat at the moment. Sarah's just asked. Sorry, I stopped to look because I have to watch my step. See how we've got roots and limestone exposed here. The storms, yes, I mean, any water is good news. The problem is when you get these so-called atmospheric rivers, a term I didn't even know until 2 years ago. Like, this is how much things are changing. But when you get these atmospheric rivers, the ecosystem cannot absorb water that quickly. This is why this is why here we want snow. I mean, basically all the snow is just rainfall in reserve. And so that's the same thing when it just comes flooding down. Well, they had a landslide when I was in Vancouver last week and actually closed the Sea to Sky Highway. There we are looking back down. That's the Goat Range in the distance over on the right. And then through the trees, these gnarly limber pines out here, and through the back of them, hopefully it's able to focus on the color of the clouds up there. So yeah, Mount Girard and Ingalls Maldy over there, and those big cirque formations. Again, we're looking at the west face of those mountains. Because they're pointing to the east. I hate to see the top of that. Let me see if I can get a zoom in. Look at that. Oh, there is a chipmunk or squirrel singing out. I don't know if you can hear it, but saying good morning to everyone around the world. And by the way, down lower on the screen, you're looking out into the benchland formations. And that's the hoodoos, these natural pillars. Ours are formed from erosion. So are the ones down in Bryce Canyon. If you go into central Turkey, Gorome, into Cappadocia, they're formed by ash. So all the same, same sort of look, but different formations altogether. And then there's Sacred Mountain straight in front of me in the distance, Mount Picchu, which means soaring eagle. It is just gorgeous. Oh yeah, the light is just, I can't decide. I want to come and take you around the bend as well. It's, I almost turned the monitor on even earlier, 10 minutes before. Oh, here's the sun. You know what I'm going to do, actually, ladies and gentlemen, is do not throw rocks, climbers below. Now, I don't know why people feel like they need to put stickers and things on. I just wish, there's no need. There's no need to put I was here. There's no need ever. Oh, all right, there we are. Out in the distance, right on the top of Mount Almer, right there is your first actual sunrise in our valley. So there is the solstice coming to fruition right now. So that one is 3,140 meters tall, I think, 10,400 feet. That peak out there has a great sentinel. So happy solstice, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that just what a moment? Now, you've seen the little clips I've been putting on Facebook the last few days because the mornings have just been so spectacular. And it's just luck of the draw. It really is. It's where your cloud formations are at a specific time. I am just going to, if you bear with me one moment, I'm just going to prop you all up on the ground here and get to look at snow for a minute. Only because the time has come that I need to dig my gloves out of my backpack. It's just getting cold enough that I just need to warm my hands up a tiny little bit because I don't want to turn everything off. I want to stay with everyone on this really spectacular morning. So as the holiday season approaches, we have a lot of fun here because, of course, the brand of Banff. There we are. See the lights? These are my electric gloves. They don't work very well, but happy solstice. So let's keep going down. So here, it's a bit of a shame this year that Christmas and Boxing Day, which we get two holidays in a row, are a Wednesday, Thursday. I was in the bank the other day, and the lady working there said her daughter works up in Edmonton and just can't come home because she has to be back at work on Friday. So a bit of a bummer. Next year it'll fall before a weekend, making a 4-day break. But then, of course, we have lighting of candles because Hanukkah starts on the 25th as well. So that goes on. In fact, we all see these signs around that say, I'm not saying happy holidays out of some sense of malice. I'm saying them because there's 30 or 40 different celebrations this time of year. And that all goes back to the fact that whatever faith base you are, whatever your belief system, whatever your spiritual or societal structure is, the solstice matters, and it matters in so many different cultures. Oh, thank you, Martine. And because it matters in so many cultures, this is a collective time for us all to take a deep breath. Of course, and I had, by the way, and feel free to send in questions, maybe today or tomorrow. I'm going to sit down and record a video because I put out a request for questions for travel. And, and one person I know actually said to me, after the last 2 years, I get tired. And yes, I am. I mean, it's a time for reflection. And I might do a Q&A at some point as well about what's going on in Canadian politics at the moment. This isn't the time for it, except for I am in the most Canadian place you can be, which is funny to say because the West, of course, is distinctly younger than the East of Canada in a colonial construct. But of course, it was little tiny Banff here that funded the trains, which led to Canada being formed as a country. So, the hotel down below me, the famous Banff Springs Hotel, is the reason that this country has succeeded. There's someone talking about taking it over at the moment, but I think we'll probably get through that, hopefully. It's a bit of a scary time, and normally this is not a part of the world where we have to live in fear like so many others. Look, here I can get you some proper views now. out across the valley. Look at the light. So there's that Fairholme Range. The branch of the river down below us on the left side of the screen is totally void of water. That you can see where no water is really flowing in there. That doesn't happen really until late May, June. You'll see some of the cliffs that we rock climb on down here. Again, all limestone, right? This is all ancient seabed. It is amazing, isn't it? So there you can actually get a tiny, tiny glimpse of Lake Minnewanka out in the distance. That is the, is it, sorry, I didn't catch that one, Justina. So Minnewanka, and then you have the Palliser Range in the distance. Now, John Palliser was the captain of the Palliser expedition, which was 1857 to 1860, where they came with the help of course, Indigenous guides, and found, or were the first Europeans to see the pass over what later, in 1858 became known as Kicking Horse Pass when Dr. James Hector was kicked by his horse. That leads down into Yoho Park, and of course the word Yoho is such a perfect name for that national park, the second oldest national park in Canada. It's a Cree word, an expression of awe, so we simply translate it as wow. Yeah, so Joanne, First Nations did all really depending, and so they tended to focus on the moon more than specifically the day, and of course the full moons always shift a little bit. They called it the wolf moon, and because the wolves would howl at it. Oh, and that actually the side point I want to make, but they saw that as a time of hibernating, of nesting, staying warm. Because, of course, for us, the coldest period of the year usually starts about now, right into February. There was a poem that I really wanted to show when I was in Vancouver, and I forgot to photograph it this time. I'll photograph it next time, but a Musqueam chief, and it's called The Last Wolf. And he was telling his grandson, in the poem, he's telling his grandson about the wolves, and the grandson said, "Well, I can't hear the wolves, and the wolves have been silenced." It's a really tragic sort of story, and very meaningful. So, yeah, so it is a huge transitional point for First Nations. Now, if you're way up north with the Inuit people, who I just think are some of the most incredible people in the world, up in Nunavut, um, people you once knew as Eskimo people. Of course, it's pure dark up there right now. By the way, down past the highway way in the distance, you'll see our landing strip. That's the Banff International Airport. It's only an emergency landing strip now, but it was built way back 1911. They used to take off from what is now part of Calgary, Bowness. I have taken you on some virtual tours ice skating in Bowness. They used to fly into here, so they just keep it open as an emergency landing strip. Now let's have a little look down the valley. Hi, Diane. Nice to see you. It's nice to see. Um, oh, it's good. I'm still. Yeah, Pam's still doing tours. Yeah, in fact, Pam and I talked last week. We were going to do a Christmas lights tour, and we're going to have to do one. In fact, I will give Pam a call today and see. We actually want to do one in the morning, early our time, because the lights are all on Banff Avenue. Except a few. Now the hotels look fabulous. They've done a great job this year. A few of the other town lights haven't gone up, and then later in the day, yeah, Pam's working. Um, Hi, Melissa. Lovely to see you here. You find Pam. So we have our small subscriber group. If you want to join, Pam's in there, and she always posts her tours in there. That's too many subscribers, and it's only like $2 a month or something. But it was just a way of clearing out some of the other things. She's got Adventures by Pam, and she's at Lake Louise 2 or 3 days a week anyway. So she's done some really nice tours there. So yeah, so that's a fun way to join. And Pam, and then of course our beloved Elizabeth down in Peru always posts things. Actually, I'm going to tell a fun story uh, about my friends in Peru. Because one time I was chatting with Elizabeth, a few years ago. We've been friends for years now, and we only have, I think, a 1 hour time difference. But of course, she lives in the tropics, even though she lives at high elevation. So where she is in Arequipa is at 2,300 meters. That's about 8,000 feet. But and we talked, and it was, I think it was light here, like it was more like summer. And she said to me, "Hold on, what time is it there?" And I'm like, "It's 1 hour difference from you." "Well, why is it light at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night?" And that's because, of course, we have those big differences of time that people in the tropics don't see. Have a look. There's the top of Cascade Mountain. I know many of you love Cascade. It is now fully enveloped in sunrise. So there's the light. Yeah, Robert, I was just thinking of you. You can actually see the waterfall, the frozen waterfall on the side of it. I feel like it must just be, it's just snow blowing around in the distance. Yeah, so there's the light hitting it. And so Robert and Lucy were out here a couple of years ago in June, and the one rainy week we've had for 2 years, but so often we have these blue skies. And it's always a bit colder with the blue skies, although this is warmer. And again, these winds. So to the question earlier, the storms on the West Coast, we just need them to not come up from the south. We need them to bring that Pacific moisture up and over because it's three full mountain chains before you get here. So you have the coastal mountains, then the Columbia Mountains, and then the Canadian Rockies. This is all this ancient seabed, right? The rock around here is 400 million years old. That's around me here. Look at the light in every direction. There is Mount Norquay, named after the first premier of Manitoba. By the way, Webb Canoe was premier of Manitoba, the First Nations. Now, Mount Norquay was Métis, but Webb Canoe is apparently the most popular premier in this whole country. And he has been so articulate, and whatever choice Manitobans make long term is such a healthy thing for us as a society going through a long and painful process of reconciliation to have a First Nations premier. Juniper bushes down below. And of course, juniper is famous for making gin. Now, we don't eat or pick any of those seeds. Yeah, that's look at the light. It's still, and now it's just starting to crest onto the top of Sulphur Mountain there. The Rimrock Hotel, by the way, which is one you see in the distance, that's where the gondola is that goes up $80-something now to go to the top of the mountain. I hike up there, although I haven't for a while, so I have to do that. I'm thinking about maybe Tuesday strapping my touring skis on and going up Sunshine just for some exercise. Just feel like I need to be doing, well, this reminded me this morning, I need to be doing a little more cardio. So let's start walking down together. So all of this limestone, you'll see the lichen down on the sides here. And that's how very, very quickly this basic rock gives way to vegetation. It happens really quite quickly. This is whitebark pine down here, high elevation plants. And these, because their pines are quite deep, that's why the Clark's nutcracker, the only nutcracker in the Rockies, thank you, Robert, has quite a long beak, which is designed specifically to eat the seeds out of that. And those are the Vermilion Lakes. Some of you might remember back in the virtual tour days during the pandemic, I stood out on those lakes when it was about minus 40. And I discovered that a gimbal lasts about, that's what's holding my phone right now, lasts about 22 minutes at minus 40 if you're lucky. So I'm still using the old DJI 3, the very first gimbals that we bought, even though we did buy subsequent ones. I find the plastic handle lasts a bit longer than the metal ones out here in the cold. It is interesting. I had a good conversation with someone further south the other day that, those of us who live in these cold cultures, we are actually a much smaller population or percentage of the population around the world. You think in India alone, you do have some cold areas in the far north, high in the Himalayas, but most people live with heat. Yeah. And then obviously the coldest. Hey, thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to you. Big hugs to you, Hannah. Hannah, we need to get you out on one of our trips, by the way, one of our real in-person trips. But but yeah, the Harbin, China is officially the coldest big city in the world. There's one little town, I won't remember the name right now, but out in Siberia. But then usually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all Canadian cities. So Calgary, Edmonton, all these cold places. There's Brewster's Peak out in the distance there. So these are the cold, but Canada now is 41 million people. And I know that's not a lot, but it's the fact that just 3 years ago, it was 38 million. The building down in the distance there. Oh, well, Robert, let's have a chat about that. There's the Park Administration Building. That was a make-work project in the 30s, back when the old Canadian government did nothing for people in the way of welfare. And of course, you had the economic collapse of the 30s, which is always blamed totally on the collapse of the Wall Street market, although of course it's a much more complicated story than that, as is everything. Um, but suddenly you had just massive unemployment, particularly out of Saskatchewan, which was a bigger province by population than Alberta was at that time, and they and so they created these work projects in the national parks because it was one place the federal government had jurisdiction. Um, and so a lot of the infrastructure in the national parks goes back to that 1930s areas. Do you see how I've just dropped down 60 or 70 meters or so, and suddenly the trees get bigger? You create these microclimates. The whole side of this mountain, the smallest of the mountains here in the national park, down here gets closed off in May. The path stays open, but the rest, because that's where the elk calve, they have their babies. And something that we take very seriously, because our growing season is so short here, because ostensibly we have a lot of winter. This is right. Take it easy on the mountain. Please stay on the trails, and that is to protect the ground because the roots are very, very shallow. There's not a lot of topsoil, and that's why historically these are all hunting corridors. And where parks has had to cut trees just to clear out areas when there's a risk of one falling, they just leave them there and they gradually get reabsorbed into the ecosystem. You can walk around the whole base of this mountain, by the way, and I do highly recommend that, except in June, sometimes with high water, you don't get through. You see when the bark is all bent, this is a Douglas fir here. This is a tree that's getting old. Now it's probably 200 years old. It is steep, Justina. Yep. But yeah, maybe 200 years old. But that bark is starting to give way, and that is sort of the beginning of the end of the tree. But that can still take another 100 years or so. It's fascinating. So let's just go down a couple more bends, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get a few more little views. Once I get lower, oddly enough, there's two sections. I walk down to the upper road. The upper road is closed in the winter, and that is because it's too narrow for plows. But that's why I'm able, with my big fat tires. Thank you, Diane. Thank you very much. Happy holidays. Um, oh, by the way, if you're expecting a Christmas card or a holiday card from me this year, my excuse this year is that Canada's Post was on strike for a month, and already it's not the best service. So um, now that Canada Post was legislated back, the only thing that I've gotten was some advertising. The light on the top of the mountain. Yeah, so this does, I think on the screen, this actually looks steeper than it is, but it is fairly steep in this section. There's someone jogging up. So this is obviously tourists love coming up here, but locals use this as their workout mountain, and understandably so. So once I'm finished with this little walk, I will go home. I'm actually tempted to go for a cold plunge this morning, to go break through the ice, but might do that tomorrow morning. So today is Saturday, of course. A nice day to have a solstice. Gentleman running up the hill here. Morning. And yeah, so you're never really alone on this mountain. And I don't have my bear spray with me here because I'm not going to encounter a bear on this mountain today. The cougars are out and about, although not a big issue. Yeah, so the strike is over, but they only started accepting international letters. I don't know, yesterday or something. It's going to take weeks to undo it. And even the other things like Amazon, which I never order off of anyway, but they're restricting deliveries. Now, down in the distance, if you have good eyes, we're actually, you don't really see it, but there's a bridge down in the distance. The Banff Springs Hotel is there, and the bridge is just over the Spray River. But it was quite windy up top, and now I'm sheltered, and you have the light coming in down the valley here. What a gorgeous morning. It's so nice to share this with everyone. I don't know if I'll do an evening solstice one today. Yeah, I like to go up, but I am going to put one on Christmas Day, of course, as I have every year. So, in fact, I'll probably schedule that when I get back home here. I'll probably do that quite early because it's so nice to get up on Christmas Day, and I usually go down by the Bow Falls. So, yes, yeah, don't post anything to Canada. It's well, unless you have really healthy pigeons. So it's down through this section that we usually have some wires closing everything off, or red tape just saying don't go in and spring when the elk are having their babies. when we've seen so many coyotes the last little while because they've just been booted out of the dens, and the deer all around. And yeah, so that, the diversity. Now, having just been down in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and those, particularly the wetter areas, that biodiversity is incredible. Here, of course, it's a much more austere environment. Um, Obviously, well, unless you really dislike mountains, it is just so breathtaking here always. But we have about 100 birds that stay the winter. I know that we can have 600 or something in small areas down in tropical places. Um, but look down that valley, though. Love to see that inversion. And if you're to drive, it takes you about 9 hours from here to the Pacific Ocean. So it's a long way. Of course, if I go the other way, it's 13 hours to get to Winnipeg. And you can't really drive to the Hudson's Bay if the train's running again in Churchill. But there's our little town of Banff out here and our valley. So it's honestly just such a treat. And I was looking so forward to doing this. Well, like I say, I was looking so forward to doing this little walk this morning that that I got up way too early. I did feel very silly, like, oh, sunrise in 25 minutes. But so my bike ride from home over here is only about 10 or 12 minutes, and then took me 18 to walk up from this section. So then you get up a bit of a sweat, but then that's when my hands got cold. So that's why I have the gloves out. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, feel free, send me any other travel questions that you have. I've actually received quite a few, and I'll try and sit down and record some answers for that. And then yes, I did do, I've done 2 little TikTok. I've stayed away from that whole TikTok platform because it's so toxic, but I did do a couple of just about things happening in this country. But you're very welcome. Listen, safe travels to anyone who is traveling today or over the holidays, wherever you are. If you are going to be alone on any of the days, remember we've got a very warm community, and you're welcome to come in to our little subscriber group. That's always nice. Obviously, I post a lot of things on my To Me Travel one, but people just respond to that, and that's I don't know, growing. We'll see how that goes, but it's nice to keep growing this YouTube here, and just kind of give you one final view over my valley, and then I'm going to pack this away and warm my thumb up because I can't really feel it, but that's where the cold gets. So have a look at that lovely view down there. So well, it's so nice to connect with everyone. Please have a very happy holiday season. And I will talk to Pam about doing Christmas lights one. Absolutely, because I know she wants to. We'll probably do it on mine, and of course, I just take her out for dinner with any contributions. She'll be over at the house sometime during the holidays as well. So we're all pretty close knit community out here, which is part of the fun of living in a place like this. So there we are. Peace and love to everyone. I wish I could get the screen to refocus on the back, but I can't do that. Anyway, stay safe and happy. You're very welcome. It was so nice to share this with everyone. Lots of love. Happy holidays. And my kid says hi. All right, Daddy, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.